right, how's it going? It's Kyle Henderson here with Steve Wiseman of the Raleigh News Observer. How you doing today, Steve?
Doing really well, Kyle. Good to talk to you.
You know, it's finally great to be back in the college football season, and the big one is coming on Saturday, and we'll both be there at the Mercedes Stadium in Atlanta, Georgia, as Alabama takes on Duke. I'm grateful that you're on the air with us today, and I wanted to get your take regarding this game and really get some intel from Duke's side. We've talked about Alabama plenty on this side. I think a good starting point, what's the mindset for Duke following a successful year, going 8-5 last season, though they do lose Daniel Jones at quarterback? What's the mindset of this group coming into this season?
Yeah, they've been to bowl games now in 6 of the last 7 years, which, you know, for fans of a program like Alabama, doesn't seem like anything special. But for Duke, it tells you how far they've come under David Cutcliffe, because before he arrived, they hadn't been to a bowl game since 1994, and they'd gone a long time without a winning record or anything. They were the worst Division I program in America. They'd won 10 games over the 8 seasons prior to his arrival in 2008. It took him a few years to get it going. He had to turn recruiting around, but now he's got them to where they're a consistent, 6, 7, 8 win team, and this is what they were hoping for. Now, obviously, they want to take it to a next level and try to get to be a 9-10 win team, division championship contender, conference championship contender. That's the next place they have to go, and producing a first-round draft pick is a big deal, a top 10 pick in Daniel Jones. Now they have to prove they can survive that they've built a program to where, okay, we're going to lose this top-notch quarterback and not come back the next year and go 3-9 or 2-10 or something like that.
Now, Duke does return Quentin Harris. Looks like he's going to step in as a redshirt senior. Been very productive. He has 510 yards at his career, 8 touchdowns, only 1 interception. What type of quarterback is he? And does Duke lose a giant step with losing Daniel Jones? I mean, obviously he's a first-round pick, but can Quentin Harris, I guess, run the offense is my question?
Yeah, he can run the offense, and that's one of the good things about it with him is he is a redshirt senior. He's been Daniel's backup for the last 3 years. He's gotten plenty of playing time along the way because last year Daniel missed a couple of games with the broken collarbone, so Quentin stepped in and he finished up a road win at Northwestern. That's where Daniel got hurt, and then led him to a win at Baylor, and then came home and they won a home game with North Carolina Central, which they should win that game, an FCS opponent. But that shows you that Quentin knows this offense. He's not an NFL quarterback. He's not going to be going to the pros like Daniel. Quentin's only 6'1", where Daniel's 6'4", 6'5", just different type of an athlete. But Quentin knows the offense. He can make the throws, as they say, and all that. So that's one thing that the team is confident in Quentin. But again, he's not an NFL quarterback. So let's make sure that distinction is clear. He can do things, but there are things that Daniel can do that Quentin just can't.
Now, we're talking with Steve Wiseman of the Raleigh News Observer. Thanks for joining us, as I mentioned earlier. Deion Jackson looks like, he could be a formidable player coming into this game, all ACC, all-purpose back. And when you're talking strengths of the Duke offense, I would assume, they got to get him touches. Who else from the offensive side of the ball can make explosive plays beyond Deion Jackson, and what type of player is he?
Yeah, the running back is clearly the strength of this team with Deion and another junior named Britton Brown, who was the leading rusher 2 years ago. Last year he was hurt, kind of dinged up, different injuries, shoulder, knee, that kind of stuff. And Deion stepped in and became the main back and really had a great year. So they got both of them this year healthy. And the idea is to find ways to get both of them on the field at the same time, because Deion Jackson was a high school wide receiver who converted to a running back late in his high school career. So he's very good at catching the ball out of the backfield. He's an explosive breakaway runner. He is potent in the kick return game too. But Britton Brown is a stronger runner between the tackles, but he also has some breakaway speed too. So I think you might see sometimes Deion lined up in the slot with Britton in the backfield, maybe both of them in the backfield, different formations like that to try to get those playmakers the ball in space and try to make some plays. There are two guys that Duke has that can play with SEC type defenses, where maybe 6 or 7 years ago that wasn't the case with Duke. They didn't have anybody that could do that. They have two guys in the backfield that can do that need to be watched out for by opposing defenses.
Now I'm curious to get Cutcliffe's kind of message to this team? And I'm sure you guys have asked him about it going into this game. I mean, taking on a perennial power in college football. What has his message been with Duke taking on, one of the two best teams in college football to open up the college football season?
Yeah, he's been open about, sometimes coaches will, let's not talk about, the first game or the opponent. We're worried about us kind of thing, right? Well, they know that what they're getting into. They know they're playing a juggernaut, the premier program in the country. I know they didn't win it last year, but let's face it, Alabama, Clemson, Georgia, people like that are all in that elite group, and they know that there's a chance they'll go in there and get their heads handed to them. But he said that it's really helped them focus, which always is the case whenever you're playing a big-time opponent in your first game, whether it's a conference game or a non-conference game like this. This program has grown to the point where they were invited to be part of this game. And 10 years ago, nobody would have even considered Duke for a game like this. It wouldn't have been attractive to organizers or anything. But the fact that Cutcliffe's brought Duke as far as he has gets them at the table for a game like this, and gives them an opportunity to play on national television against a national championship contender. And they may go in there and get knocked around. There's a good chance that'll happen. But he says they'll be more focused than they would have been had they been playing another opponent maybe. That this has really gotten the team's attention.
Now, just looking at the Vegas lines, according to Stations Casino, the spread, Alabama favored by 34 points. The over-under set at about 58 points. So you can play with those numbers if you want. Now, when we talk about weaknesses for this Duke team, I was looking at the offensive line. We were talking about this earlier. It looks like Duke could start a freshman right tackle and a freshman left tackle. Can you give us some backstory on that? It seems like a glaring weakness when you look at this Duke offense.
Yeah, tackle's been a weakness for this team for the last couple of years. That's one of the reasons why, if you look at Daniel Jones' stats, they're not as good as they could have been. That and a lot of drop balls by the receivers, but he hadn't getting a lot of protection on the edge. And so they brought in a couple of freshmen. Jacob Monk is a true freshman. He's going to start at right tackle. And on the left side, it's a redshirt freshman named Casey Holman, who at least was in the program all of last year. And in practice, so they know what they got with him. Monk just got here, in the spring, and it's really given him a jump start to win that job at right tackle. And they're adamant that yeah, we're playing young guys, but we think they're really talented young guys. And but again, that's a real concern when you're going against a defense with the type of future NFL talent, star talent that Alabama has. And so, those guys are going to get a baptism under fire, no question about college football. Duke is a little stronger in the middle of the offensive line. They returned starters there at center and the guard positions. So they have some strength there and some experience, but those guys on the edges are going to be, you're going to have to watch out for them for sure.
Now, as we move to the defensive side of the ball, what is this team's strength going into this game? I know in the past it looks like Duke has always had a strong secondary. Does that remain the same for the 2019 season?
Yeah, it clearly does. They have three safeties that are top notch. Michael Carter, the second, is a junior. He played some corner last year. He played some safeties. He's going to be starting at safety. He intercepted 2 passes and almost had a third in a scrimmage earlier this month. He's a real ball hawk and a strong player, future NFL player, it looks like. Dylan Singleton is another safety that you watch out for. He was playing like an all-ACC player last year. He had 73 tackles before he got hurt in early November, broke an ankle and missed the rest of the season. So he's come back strong. So there's 2 playmakers right there. They play a 4-2-5 alignment, so they use 5 defensive backs, and the safeties and corners are kind of interchangeable. That's why you see like a guy like Michael Carter could play one or the other. So that tells you the kind of athleticism they have out there. They are missing Mark Gilbert, who looked like he was headed to the NFL. It's probably a high-round pick. He had 7 interceptions 2 years ago, and then last year, early in the season, he dislocated his hip against Northwestern. And he went, he's a first-team All-ACC guy, and they lost him the rest of the year. He's not healthy enough to come back and play yet, and that's just such a bad injury. You don't know what they'll be able to get out of him this year. But if they get anything close to what he was, that gives them even more depth in the secondary. So that's clearly the strength of this team.
What about up front? When you look at the pass rush, is there anyone that could potentially get past Alabama, what looks like a massive offensive line, to maybe put some pressure on Tua Tagovailoa?
Yeah, Duke is better along the defensive front than they ever have been. under Cutcliffe in the 12th year he's been here. Ben Albert came in as the defensive line coach from Boston College, where he built a pretty strong defense up there. Some NFL guys, Harold Landry's one of them that he coached. So Albert's been here 3 years now, and he's improved the recruiting up there greatly. And so a guy like Victor Demukaje and Drew Jordan, they're both junior defensive ends who started last year and back this year. They look like they're probably going to get chances to play at the next level when their career is done. I know those two guys are they're counting on a lot. In the middle, Derek Tangelo and Trayvon McSwain, juniors and seniors who have started before, who are in the middle. Edgar Serenord was a starter last year as a redshirt senior, and he popped his Achilles, and so he got a medical hardship to play 6th year. So he's back this year, and he's healthy, but he's not starting because Tangelo and McSwain have played so well that Serenord is going to be part of the second group that comes in. So they have more depth up there and more talent than they ever have. Again, they're going against a very, very strong offensive line, but those are guys that give Duke a chance to have a puncher's chance as far as the defense against the offense.
Speaking of a puncher's chance, in your opinion, and looking at this team, what do they have to do? What's their best chance to stay close with Alabama throughout this game?
Yeah, well, it always comes down to turnovers, of course. If they can get some takeaways, if their defense can do that, that'll because the offense is not the stronger part of Duke's team. The defense is clearly the best part of this team. So they're going to have to get some offense from the defense, whether it's pick sixes, picking up fumbles, taking it back, or even just getting turnovers in Duke's territory, so they can move the ball in easy from there, and also trying to frustrate Alabama's offense a little bit. I know the way Saban prepares a team, and they're not going to overlook anybody, but yet they're used to coming out there and scoring pretty much as they want, and we've seen that a lot of times. And obviously, what Duke wants to do is try to make them frustrated and get a few stops. Last year they played Clemson really well in the first half down at Clemson in late November, and the game got away from them in the second half. So they came away from that knowing, hey, we can slug it out with a really, really great team. We just have to continue it into the second half. So maybe that's what they're going to try to do this time.
Now, you bring up an interesting point. That's actually what I was going to ask you next. How much has this team gained experience from playing another perennial power just recently in Clemson? I mean, like you said, I watched that game actually last year myself. It was 14-6 at halftime, and there was a couple of bounces that just didn't go Duke's way. Otherwise, who knows what happens in that second half. How much experience has this Duke team received playing a power like Clemson? Because Clemson obviously rising and up at the college football pinnacle. Have you seen some spillover with the confidence from playing the national championship?
I actually have, and one thing that I remember after that game, doing the interviews, is how angry the Duke players and particularly Coach Cutcliffe were. And normally when they come out of a game like that, hey, they weren't expected to win anyway. Duke's not on that level. But they got to the point where they expect to go into games like this and compete well and be at their best, and they weren't in the second half. They didn't have the same edge they had in the first half. They really let Clemson really run over them in the second half. So, and it actually carried over. The next week they lost 59-7 to Wake Forest the following week, and it was a hangover effect from that Clemson game because they knew they were going to a bowl and they didn't take it. They didn't take the work as they should have, and it really cost them bad. So I know that they turned around and played well in the bowl game, and now they're coming into this game trying to carry that edge and saying, hey, we can get in there and run with these guys. We have a better athleticism now than we ever have, so it's time to show it on a national stage, and that's their approach. Now, I'm not sure it's going to happen, but their approach is to come in there and play well.
Now, kind of rounding out the program, what's realistic when you look at these two teams? Alabama, the returns, the incredible talent on both sides of the football, one of the greatest coaches, not the greatest coach of all time, coaching the team. What's realistic in week one? In the past, Alabama has came out, they've started so well in the opener, but what's realistic when you look at a game like this?
Yeah, again, for all the Duke's efforts here, if they can keep it within a shooting distance at halftime, I think they will have accomplished something. And I know they want to do better than that, there's no doubt. But, we're talking about one of the most talented teams in the country. And I know they just played Clemson, and they did it to them. They played them close in the first half and got to win the second half. What Duke doesn't want to have happen is to come out and fall behind 28-0 in the first quarter or something like that. I mean, this game's on national TV in a big venue in Atlanta, one of the premier games of the weekend as far as the Chick-fil-A kickoff. And people are going to be flipping around and looking for games. And if they turn it on, they see Alabama 35, Duke 3 in the second quarter, they're going to move on to something else. And that's not what Duke's program needs. And so, but I'm afraid, the best they could probably do is keep it close at halftime, keep people interested from their point of view.
Now, before I let you go, Steve, I have to ask you about the Clemson Tigers. You're in close proximity. You've seen them play. You were at Death Valley last year. Do you feel that's obviously the bad moon rising in college football? I mean, with everything that they have going for them, I mean, you look at what they did last year to Alabama. You look at the recruiting. You look at Dabo Swinney. Can you give me just some insight from what you've seen from Clemson and how you feel about their program? Because it seems like, the next wave of college football has clearly arrived.
It certainly has, and I'll be honest. Last year during the year, I didn't think Clemson could beat Alabama. I thought Clemson could beat everybody else, but I thought Alabama was far and away the best team in the country. And so what Clemson did to them shocked me. I'm sure as much as it shocked people that are listening from your point of view. But they've. Dabo has done such an amazing job, and he's really, he is going head to head with anybody in the recruiting game right now. They have facilities, they have momentum. But even after they won that first title a couple of years ago, I mean, that was obviously a huge accomplishment. But I didn't know how he could maintain it, and he's done it. He even went beyond that with what they did last year. And the way he handled the quarterbacks last year with Kelly Bryant starting, and they brought in Trevor Lawrence. They almost lost to Syracuse. And that's where I thought things were about to go in the ditch. And they straightened it out right away. And boy, Trevor Lawrence is something special. And they got him for 2 more years, not just 1, but 2. And so it's going to be tough to beat them the next couple of years with him under center.
Hey, thank you so much. It's Steve Wiseman from the Raleigh News Observer. I really appreciate you jumping on with us today. We'll see you next Saturday in Atlanta, Georgia at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium.
Very good, Kyle. Thanks for having me on.
All right, take it easy, buddy.